Hello, welcome to Walpole United WFC. Hello and welcome to Walpole United with me, John Foster, MUFC. We're going to talk about the Fans Advisory Board today here with Deborah and Connor. We're going to talk a bit about Man United Women's Supporters Club. We're going to talk about how it affects everybody who's watching today. And towards the end of the show, we're going to touch on how the club have reacted to certain storylines and situations of Man United Women's team across 2021. So plenty to get our teeth into today. I can see quite a few people watching already. Thank you very much. Get into the comments. Natalie can't make it tonight. She's actually got something else, unfortunately, that she had to do. But if you want to see more of Natalie, check out Natalie's show last night. Absolutely cracking as always. She always hits the main topics head on. She speaks about diversity with a mainstream tabloid editor. So check that one out on Wednesday's show. So Connor's standing in. How you doing, Connor? You okay?
No, I feel there's pressure now. I'm like a super sub. I'm not going to be able to live up to Nat, I'm sure. But no, I'm. As soon as you asked me, I was like, yeah, no, I want to be involved in this. So yeah, let's get started.
It is a massive one, and it's being streamed across 2 channels, which is very, very rare. I can't remember the last time we streamed across this channel and the Walpole United main account. So fantastic. So if you haven't subscribed to both of them, please do. Deborah, thank you for coming on. How are you?
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, guys. Yeah, I'm good, thank you. My apologies. I'll have to start. If I get a bit congested, it's not COVID. No, I'm good, thank you. I'm fine, thanks.
Good. Well, first of all, congratulations on being put forward, or I don't know the correct terminology, but it is an amazing position to be in. Deborah, for anyone who's never seen you at the stadium or seen you on Twitter, there's going to be a few people watching this who may not exactly know who you are. Do you want to just talk a little bit about Man United Women's Supporters Club and how you managed to kind of get into the position that you're in?
Yeah, well, I suppose the Supporters Club started, some people will know us as the Barmy Army, and that's pretty much who we were back in the first season after the team reformed in 2018. And it really came out of a group of us at the back of the stand, just making a lot of noise, following the team home and away, doing things a little bit differently from the way they'd normally been done in women's football. But supporting Man United the way we knew how to support Man United. Most of us, not all, but most of us were regulars or semi-regulars at Old Trafford, and we just moved that over. Since then, the group's grown, and we've got to a stage now where over the summer we decided to rebrand and change our name. We had a couple of things going on at the time. I assumed the role of chair, and we changed from Barmy Army to MUWSC. Not to deny what we'd done as Barmy Army, but just because we were really aware that there were some people who perhaps didn't want that element of the rowdiness at a game, but they still wanted to go and watch and support the team. And we wanted to make it clear that, and I think I've said this in the past on one of these shows, that we'll never move away from the Barmy Army. We've almost incorporated them. I think if we look at the men's game, it's almost as if the Barmy Army are our TRA. We are just the overriding supporters group. So yeah, we've made some pretty big moves this last 12 months, I'd say, certainly within the club. We now have regular meetings with the club every sort of 2 months or so where we raise those issues. We can raise issues outside of that if there's issues. So certainly season tickets, we had a lot of problems with those. We were having regular contact with the club to get those sorted. But yeah, we've also now got a fans forum seat, which is a really, really big thing for us. And yeah, the Fans Advisory Board, that was announced. It came really from the fallout of the ESL. That United wanted to form this advisory board, and it made media in terms of what United's response would be. I think in August they opened up the position, the applications for. There were two appointees, and anybody could apply and go through that process. It wasn't you have to be that person. Anybody could apply to go through that process. And I know, John, you've got some of the press releases that were around at that time and more recently. And that was the process that I went through and, was offered the position a few weeks ago. I've lost all track of time. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you summarised it perfectly. I will read those press remarks very soon. You did mention the fallout with the ESL, and it is nice to see that the club have reacted. They haven't just paid lip service; they have actually done something about it now. Connor, you was actually at the protests, weren't you, at the time? I think that's one of the first times that you met some of the other guys as well. The club had to do something, didn't they? And it looks like they're moving forward. What are your thoughts on the whole FAB, how it's come about, and how lucky we are, I guess, to have Deborah there, someone who we know personally, who we can actually speak to, who can report straight back to Richard Arnold, and who goes to Joel Glazer and the rest from there.
Yeah, I get you kind of led me on to a couple of points, one of my questions really, but I guess go back to your original question at the start. I think something needed to be done anyway. Obviously, we all saw how restless it got earlier in the year when it all kind of got proposed, and I don't think it was ever going to just get brushed under the carpet. I don't think anyone could have survived the kind of, the onslaught that was coming from fans at that time, particularly obviously the rescheduling of the Liverpool game and so on, and everything that happened kind of after that. But I am genuinely intrigued by this, because it's the first time really that they've come out and put something forward, or something forward that's public anyway. They've come out and actually they've kind of backed up what they've said. It's the first time really they've come out and said, right, we're going to do this. That I think it was a 10-point plan I think they came out with, and said, right, we're going to do all of these things, and most of them they have acted on so far. So yeah, I am intrigued. I think just going off back of what you said, I do have a question in terms of like who is actually involved. I don't know whether you can answer this, but who is kind of involved from the club side? Because a lot of names get bandied about, but is it the likes of Murto and Arnold? Like who is actually the kind of contact point?
The simple answer is we're still to get the details on who. We're told it's going to be 5 club representatives, but I think the important thing they're saying is that those 5 representatives will depend on the issues we're discussing. So we can throw the names around, and certainly you've only got to look at a fans forum meeting, and you'll get Richard Arnold, Colette Roach, John Murta, like you've said, Sam Kelleher, ticketing. So it will depend on. You know what? Maybe those 4 straight away. Maybe we'll throw in the director of comms as well. It's one of those that it might be more about. It's not set, because it will be reactive, I believe, and I could be very wrong on this, to the issues we're bringing. I don't yet think that's confirmed, but we are talking. I think they've announced, didn't they say Joel Glazer is going to be at the first meeting in some capacity? I think that came out with the press release. So maybe he's one of the 5 for the first meeting.
So yeah, just to clarify on that and kind of jump back in, and James, I can see a comment, so I'll jump on that shortly. Just what the media did put out, because it was a week or so ago now. A couple of names were mentioned, but I will just read the first few paragraphs. Manchester United have announced the membership of its new fans advisory board, which has been set up to strengthen the dialogue between the club and supporters and increase fan input in decision making. 7 representatives, which is obviously Deborah, you're one of those. 7 fan representatives from a range of backgrounds have been appointed to the FAB on a voluntary basis to provide counsel to the club leaders and create a new channel consultation with the fans. And then there are a couple of club names that's been mentioned as well. It's co-chaired by Christopher Saad and Richard Arnold. It does go on and tell who else is on the fans advisory board, obviously Deborah, yourself, and 6 others. But yeah, that's kind of what the press is saying. But Deborah, are you going to be primarily focusing on the women's side, or will you be able to have input everywhere? Any ideas on how the structure of the meetings will go, or anything like that at all?
Yeah, I think I'm one of those rarities that certainly in terms of the forum, of the advisory board, I flip between the 2. I'm in a very fortunate position whereby I hold season tickets for both men's and women's team. Occasionally, as in last Sunday, that gets a bit messy, and we have to choose one way or another. But it also means that on an ideal weekend, I get to watch one team play. I get to watch the other team play on consecutive days. So I think that for me, we deal with what the issues are. And whilst I'm comfortable dealing with obviously whatever comes up from the men's side of things, I'm really, really looking forward to anything that might pertain to the women's team. I don't think it's a case of I'm only there for one thing.
I think that's understandable. Yeah. And I'm waiting to jump onto James's comment, but you did mention before we went on air that Arsenal and Liverpool have done a similar thing to United, but definitely not as effective. Please say that, Deborah, because it's great for Man United that we're doing something that they aren't, I guess.
And I know we've got James's question there, and I know that I might jump into that now, but one of the issues also from the ESL fallout generally was the fan-led review. And yeah, so was it born out of a distraction tactic from the ESL fallout? I think the club have admitted they know they got it wrong with the ESL, and that's why they've brought in this advisory board. I think that's in so many of the releases they've put out. Is it a genuine attempt to connect with the fan base? Yes, I'd like to think it's a genuine attempt. But from the ESL fallout, it's across the board. It's across the game. And, I've been part of the meetings from the Women's Network where we fed back to Tracy Crouch about the women's game. So one of the things that came out of the fan-led review was this suggestion of fans on boards or fans involved in these sort of shadow boards. And everybody seems to be, if they haven't already announced it, they will announce it. And I think it's really important to recognise, I think from our perspective, that we didn't wait. We as a club, United, didn't wait for the findings of the fan-led review. They announced this back in June, July, I think, when the first announcement was made about it. And then they opened applications in August. So this has been ongoing for a long time. Liverpool recently, I think last week or earlier this week, they announced that they will be putting together a similar sort of process. Theirs will have a lot more members. They will bring in people from most of the main supporter groups. To an extent, it looks more like our forum than our advisory board, but it will be used in the same way. Arsenal launched theirs recently, and somebody sent me a quote of, "Isn't this brilliant?" And underneath it said, "The 12 men." Now, forgive me, gentlemen, I'm not saying that only women can talk about women's football, far from it. But if it comes down to an issue about stadium redevelopment and I'm talking about the ladies' toilets, I'm the one that knows what that experience is like. So, but jokingly, and I'm joking there, it's very much a case of I think in a way United are ahead of this. And I know people will say, oh, well, you're biased and you're in the position to say that. But if you look at everybody else will now follow, because they will have to follow to have these boards, I think as much as we can say, you know what, United got it really wrong back in June, back in May, back in April, that Liverpool game, that showed that the amount of feeling that was there in the club. And that feeling hasn't gone away. It's just shifted. That feeling is still there. And the club responded to that. They took it on the chin and they went, yeah, need to do something. And all credit to them. They're not waiting like a lot of Premier League clubs and clubs lower down to say, yeah, we should put this together. They've done it straight away, and I appreciate that from them. Whoever was going to take these seats, that's a real thing for them to have done.
Yeah, and I guess from my point of view, obviously, I'm not in that position, so it doesn't sound, I can't be classed as biased. I also think it's a good thing and a good step in the right direction because it's the only thing they could have done, really. I think with some people, it's kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. In whatever the reaction would have been after the ESL, I think people had already made their minds up. But for me personally, the only way to kind of get over that is to rectify the mistake they made. And by the sounds of it, they're on that track. Obviously, we don't know what is going to come of this. We all want United to be winning everything and Old Trafford to be redeveloped and the women's team to be winning and so on. But there's so many different aspects of running a football club. Really, I've watched your show before, Deborah, and what you talk about with the women's trust and things, supporters club and things like that. There's so many different, even down to what crisps you have on match days and all these kinds of things that
the pies,
yeah, exactly. that need looking at. So. I do think it's a good step as long as, and again, obviously, I don't know if but how frequent these are going to become? Like, is this like a monthly thing or quarterly or?
I think it's one of those that there is a goal, but every conversation I've had with somebody since has said maybe that won't happen. In as much as we may be looking very conservatively at how frequently these things will be. And because this is the establishment of the process, there may be more work that needs to go in, like with anything. forum is set, I think, at quarterly meetings, but that's been running for years. So I suspect there might be some element of teething with this, that we think it might be this, actually it looks like this, but then there's not subgroups, but there's conversations in the meantime. I don't know. And that's part of the excitement, that we're doing this and we are so much on the ground just running with this, because we don't know what it's capable of. But already, yeah, absolutely. And that's so true. That's so true, that the only thing I say to that is better to be in it than not. And actually, when I knew about my position and I was holding on to it, I was almost I had messages saved on my phone, responses to people saying, well, what are you doing this for? Or imaginary situations. And the one I kept coming back to was, would you rather we have a representative in this or not? Whoever that is.
Yeah.
I think the fact that we've got a voice, and I'll never say it has to be me. I would, I really hope there were other people that applied. Because whoever it is, it's a massive responsibility. And I get that. I feel quite humble about having this role. Whatever role I occupy, whether it is on the advisory board, whether it is the forum, whether it is going into club meetings, I feel really humble about that. And, you've only got to go on my Twitter. I've not even put my Twitter handle here. I don't say anything about who I am and what I am there, because to me, that doesn't define me. But also, there's no ego for me, because I'm doing this for the members we've got, the wider fan base. And I get that sense of responsibility, but I also get that there's a lot of questions about it at this stage as well.
I do think that the Man United women's fans are very lucky. I mean, we are, I do see us as one, in the sense of when you go to a stadium, you might see some away fans, some standing over there, some standing over there. We seem to be, we all know each other, we all communicate to each other, which I think we're very lucky. We've got like the Man United Women's Supporters Club, which we can touch on again throughout the show. We all know where to go for certain things. And I mean, like the Supporters Club in that. And I think it just shows how well respected the fans must be to be able to bring you in, Deb, to kind of bring, I wouldn't say speak on our behalf as such, but very similar to that, because we can give you that information, and then obviously you can just be the voice in that sense. So I'm not saying you speak for everybody, but in some cases you will, because you will be hearing everybody's voice.
And I can't necessarily make everybody happy in that process, because I might come back to you guys for consultation. And one of the great ways that we do that as the Supporters Club is very often via email for certain things. We do like to send out a survey every now and again. We've also now got a Discord server. And the reason for us having that is open to all members is because sometimes, we had it with the Old Trafford game, we need information quickly. And we need to turn around and answer quickly. And I won't go and say, yes, this is it to the club, because it might be right for me, but I could very easily be outvoted on things. And I have a responsibility to say, actually, this is what the majority of the member base are saying. So it's really useful if we can get as many members as possible onto Discord, onto the server, or just replying to emails, so that we can then know quickly what the actual opinions and the thoughts and the views are. Because I'm not in this to represent me. I'm not in this to share my viewpoint. I'm in this to say, either this is the viewpoint I know of, or I know from other conversations that I've had, this is what people are thinking. This is what people want. And very often there are things that I'm asking for or I'm talking about in club meetings. They're not for me. I don't get it. I don't necessarily want something like that, but the majority of people do. And that's the way it has to be. We can't obviously make everybody happy. We're never going to do that, because some people will want things differently. All we can ever aim to do, I suppose, is please the majority and not annoy the other people too much. But the only other thing I say to that is make your voice heard. I really, really want to know what people are saying, what people are thinking. I had a call on the way home tonight from somebody about something, and I said, I've never hidden from a conversation with somebody else about, and it's actually from a different club's fan group. And I've never said, don't come to me, don't speak to me, I don't want. I've always said, call me, get in touch with me, let me know anything, because that's the only way we can work together. And it is a together thing.
Yeah, 100%. And I think there's a good chance to actually just shout out how people can be a part of the Man United Women's Supporters Club if they're not already, and just go from there, really, Deb.
Absolutely. Main way these days tends to be via Twitter. So if you just do at MUWSC, I'm pretty sure we are. But also on that, you can get in touch with myself at Deborah Henry. And there's the other committee members. You're probably best doing that. Also through the website, so muwsc.co.uk. That's where you can become a member. Some people have difficulties with the forms, and what we say to them is, do not be put off if you can't do the form, because I'm one of those. I'm a technophobe. If somebody says to me, do this form on this and then do this, I've switched off. What we've said to people recently is just drop us a DM and say, help. Drop us a DM, just say, these are my details, this is my name, and we'll sort out membership from there. Please don't be put off. Once you become a member, we'll then send you out some information. We will, if you become a plus member, you get a lovely shiny badge. If you become a standard member, that's the freebie option we offer. Then we'll send everybody out the link to join Discord. And that is really our way of making sure that we communicate with everybody, because we've had WhatsApp groups in the past, but not everybody was a member. And what we want to be able to do is say to people, we will speak for you all, but we also really want to value the members, because you're also invested in this. Everybody as a fan is invested in this team, and we need to know what you guys are thinking. So honestly, otherwise, just come and find us at a game. Come and find me. Come and have a chat with me. Honestly, this is the best way for me to find out, because one of the things that I think makes us different as a women's supporters club in terms of men's supporters clubs is that I can actually get to see and get to know a lot of our members. If you imagine, if you've got 70,000 at Old Trafford and you're, chair of MUWSC, for example, how many of those people are you genuinely going to have a conversation with? Mm-hmm. And whilst we're small but want to grow as a fan base in terms of attendance, right now let's take advantage of that and let's have those conversations. Drop me a message, get in touch with us via Instagram, via Twitter, via the website. You can drop us a message via the website, just anything, but just come and tell us, please. And also, United have got on their website, there's a section for fans forum, and I really would recommend people doing this. You can send a representative a message, a question, and you can scroll down and it's got me on there. You can send it to anybody, but we all cover certain areas. So send me your questions and I then can put those forward into forum. It's happened the last couple of months. People have put questions to me. They went into forum yesterday and we got some answers for those. Those minutes will be out in the next week or so, I think. So look forward to those people getting the responses that they wanted.
Excellent, yeah. Conor, I know you've got a few topics that you just want to bring up that Deborah can make a note of. She might be able to shed some light on a few of those topics already. But let's just answer a couple of questions for the people in the comments. Entertainment for everyone. Any updates on Jackie's injury? Deb, I don't know if you actually know the answer to this one, but we saw her walking quite well, actually, at one of the games where she had a bully at her. Was it Arsenal? Was it City? It all blends into one now. She came out, she clapped the clothes. She seemed to be okay there, just obviously just not training. But
yeah, no updates on it. I would suspect the time of year and the nature of the injury, dare we say, maybe the new year at best.
Yeah. And Stuart, looking for a director of women's football. We will do the show on Saturday, but Deb, do you want to kind of just touch on anything that you're happy to talk about there?
Well, this week they announced they've opened applications for a head of women's football. So I suspect that whilst it's not a director of women's football, it is as close to that position in terms of the executive level that they will occupy. So yeah, that looks like it's gone out to application, and I suspect we'll hear something in the new year again for that. And actually, that would be really good if that person, we get the opportunity to see what they look like. if there's the opportunity to glad hand them, then we'll certainly accept that. Yeah.
Excellent. And yeah, we'll talk about Skinner towards the end of the show as well. Connor, you've been speaking to a few people. You might have had a few inboxes as well when you put a couple of tweets or comments out on WhatsApp groups. What's on your mind, Connor, as a Man United women's fan?
What, women's or both?
I can do both. I can go either side. Go for it, Connor.
I guess from I'll start with the women's side then. From the women's side perspective, I guess where maybe the priorities are with the club, because I think there is a sense of worry to an extent that the women's team is not as respected as it maybe should be in terms of the investment and pushing it as fast as it can be. The big, the closest thing I can think to that is the Old Trafford game. Is that being like pushed enough? Can they do more maybe to advertise? I know it's still a while away, 3 months away. But I guess that's just my kind of question: is where the women's team kind of ranks on the priority list for whether that's even been discussed at the moment.
Look, I think as football fans, we will never be satisfied unless we're winning every game and we're winning every trophy. I think that's just the nature of the beast. I think there were a lot of questions over the summer. There were a lot of concerns, a lot of questions, and I think I said it to you guys before we came on air. When there's a vacuum of silence, people make their own answers. Excuse me. And they never come up with a good answer. So I think we would all love to think by now that the investment would be similar to where our goals are. And I think that perhaps the recruitment wasn't what we expected, certainly once we had the manager appointed. I can only say the things I'm told. I can only repeat that I'm given assurances, and I can only repeat the things that I've been shown physically in terms of investment and intentions. But at some level, that's got to actually happen. What I do know is that obviously I think this head of women's football, I actually think is a really big statement. I think Tooney signing her contract was a massive statement of intent. Yeah. I think the fact that she's not only did we want her to stay, which might be a no-brainer for some people, but that she wanted to stay. And that for me was a massive sign. That I just thought, yeah, okay, we're doing something right. She's seen something. She's seen enough for her to go, yeah, you know what? I'm happy here. I'm going to stay here. I suspect that there will be things that come out as part of conversations and as part of things that we are... Okay, what's that? No. Is the short answer, sorry. No. I think that in terms of watching matches, I don't think the cliff is going to be big enough for that in terms of... I know it was rumoured as the training base, but I think they're happy at Carrington training these days, and I know there's development going on there. As has been indicated in the press. So, is the women's team taken seriously? Yes. Will it ever be taken as seriously as we want it to be? Probably not, because we don't know all the ins and outs of things. And for us, we'd say throw all the money at it, whereas there's obviously people going, well, we need to look at that, and then we need to look at that, and then we need to look long term at that. Whereas we just go, look, go and buy all the best players. But it's about what progress we want to make long term as well. But yeah,
I see Connor wants to jump in. Sorry, Deborah. So do I. You go first, Connor, and then I'll jump in with my little comment.
No, I was just going to mention that it's interesting you mentioned Ella too, because one of the first things I said on a show when she signed her contract was that was the big thing for me. The fact she'd signed it at all is good, but the fact she'd signed it so early on in the season where we might not get Champions League yet, we're all hoping we do, but we might not. The fact she signed it now, she must know something or must believe in something she's been sold on. Otherwise, there would be no point in signing it. Like, we're not even halfway through the season yet. So to sign it now when the club's in a bit of, look at our league form, it's not great. So you look at that, and the fact she signed it now makes me think that there's been conversations that she's been promised something for next year or the year after. There's got to be some kind of plan. Otherwise, I just don't think she'd have signed. And that's all I wanted to add on top of
that. That was where my thinking was when I saw it. Absolutely. Yeah, I think anybody that sees that and still thinks maybe something's not quite right, It'll never be perfect, but she's seen more than we have. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and she's definitely on the way up. A lot of teams would have been after her. She's basically been the face of the Lionesses in the last 3 months as well. And everyone knows that she's hot property, and it's great that she signed for us. And I did say myself, if ever she decides to leave Man United, we're in trouble. Not because of the results on the pitch, it's because why on earth would she want to leave Man United? Being here from the start, fans love her. Anyway, the point that I was going to make was...
Sorry, John, can I just jump in there? One of the other great things, and I'm thinking also about last night for the men, she's come through the RTC. She's not just a local girl. She's been there from day one. Excuse me. And we look at the men last night having, is it 9 academy graduates, 7 that started or something, or 7 that got on the pitch? This is the United way. I know people think, oh, yeah, all right, what kind of fuss do you make about it? But actually, Tooney is evidence of the fact that even 3.5 years in, we're doing this. It is a club thing. One club,
100%. Deb, you mentioned about like throwing money at the women's team, this, that, and the other. And I think a lot of my friends who don't really follow women's football, or they just know just a little bit about it, they make the comment of, oh, if you sell Phil Jones, or if Phil Jones's wages could buy a player, all this kind of stuff. But I always kind of defend. You can't just do that because it's like a monopoly. Your Durhams and your teams who haven't got the men's backing, it's not fair on them. I just want to do kind of like where do you kind of stand on how much backing the club should give the women's team? Because I'm probably against a lot of my friends and fans. I don't think we should just suddenly throw at the squad. I think facilities-wise, we should throw money at them, but like their well-being. But as for just going out and just buying all the best players, I don't even know if that's the right thing to do, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you look at the disparity between the men's and women's game. And it's not even sometimes selling a player, it's a player's wages for a week would make an enormous difference in terms of signings. I think that as much as some people think we are Manchester United and therefore we are on the same scale, I also think it would be incredible if we could really self-sustain so that we're not reliant. You've seen teams recently struggle with certainly COVID. Financially, COVID ripped some teams apart, and that's completely understandable. And whilst this is a conversation that goes on within the FSA network, really, about do we want self-sustaining, do we want independence? And you've clearly got teams represented in there that would want to be sustained by dependence on their club because there's big money there. You've got other clubs that want to be independent but can't afford it. For me, with Manchester United, that should be a big enough name in itself to get big get big crowds in, to attract the players. And maybe one day, yes, we can get to a stage where we're self-sustaining. We fall under the name of Manchester United, but why should we need to be piggybacking them? Yeah, that's my sense. Yeah. That's my sense. It's not everybody's. And that's why I always say, please share with me. Some people might say, no, I want to be piggybacking on the men's team all the time. Absolutely. But that's my sense.
Yeah, I think as well, there's a lot of, obviously I've only started going this year, but it's the women's side's only been going 3 or 4 years, isn't it? Where you look at other teams, the teams at the top, let's say, especially in the English league, they've been going for years. So we are kind of behind in that sense. And I think is what you're right in what you're saying there. I think because we're Manchester United, we think like we have come a long way in 3-4 years, probably quicker than the club thought. So now with like the fans' expectations have changed, but the plan is still the same. So maybe we're like ahead of that. I don't know. But yeah, I think there's expectation amongst fan base because we're Manchester United. Like, oh, well, we should be at the top. Well, not necessarily because we're behind everyone else in terms of the kind of the plans and things like that. But I guess I don't even know how to ask this question without just saying it as it is. But I mean, Old Trafford, I'm just going to say those words. Obviously, that's not been looked at for a number of reasons. Is that they said it? I think it was in that 10-point plan. I think redevelopment of Carrington and Old Trafford, I think, was on that list if I remember rightly. is that at any point of priority? Because I'm not, we're not talking like a few 100,000 or a couple of million. If they're going to develop Old Trafford, it's tens of millions to start renovating Old Trafford. But is that kind of anywhere on some kind of list for the club to be looking at?
Yes, is the short answer. And I think that's something that they know they've got to. I think if we look at Old Trafford, it represents so much. And in particular, I'm thinking about fans that don't attend games. But to see the team playing in a stadium that might look a bit tired, might look a bit old, and to see leaking roofs, things like that, it's not a great look. If we want to have pride in our team, we want to see them playing at the best stadium. We want to, if we go to games, we want to feel that we're in the best place. And I think that understanding is there now. I think for years, United have underfunded certain areas of the club, and that's one of them. You look at all these other teams that have got these great new stadia, and they're purpose-built, and that's easier sometimes to start from scratch. The question will always be, what do United do about it as it currently stands? But that's one of those conversations that, they said they're developing Carrington, they're developing Old Trafford. It's not going to be a short-term thing. That's the other thing that might kind of not surprise people, but I think would upset people that they want it by next season. My suspicion, I think that if we're being sensible, it's going to take time, like so many things. But I also think then we've got to look at the fact that if there's a money pot going there, where is it then not going? Because I think that will be people's concern. Oh, you're throwing this at Old Trafford. We get one game a year there. If I think you're fans of the women's team that don't care much for the men's game, are you taking money from the women's team? Which again feeds back to your question about independence, sustainability, reliance, and all those kinds of things.
Yeah, I think it's because people don't like to view football now as a business. It still is. I guess people and football clubs are on budgets and budget cycles and things like that. So the money will get allocated every year to a set area of the club. And like you said there, if they're going to put, let's say 100 million for argument's sake in the stadium, that money's got to come from somewhere else to be able to fund that. So whether that's we might go with 2 transfer windows, we're not signing what we want to sign because the money's. We saw it with Spurs. When they were building their stadium, they didn't sign hardly next to nobody for 3 years because all of the money was tied up in the stadium. Yeah. So I think it is kind of our owners are not multi-billionaires like we've seen at Newcastle and City and Chelsea and these kinds of things. They're rich, don't get me wrong, but they're not going to flood hundreds of millions just in every department. So it as much as I want Old Trafford to be redeveloped, the reason I don't think it's been top priority is because it does its job. At the time it was, I don't know when I think it was the quads, wasn't it, that was last developed in 2006 or 5 or 4, like early 2000s anyway. But for that time, it was the pinnacle. Obviously, now we're seeing, like we said, Spurs' stadiums and things like that. It's kind of overtaken. And so, I think just as a follow-up question to that, it should be a simple. It's only because of what happened the other night, and it's not the first time we've seen it. The away section and the disabled section. Obviously, we've seen the disabled section going up, or there's a new kind of area at Stretford second tier now.
Yeah, there's some new platforms they've put up there.
I've said for years that section shouldn't be in front of away fans, but I followed that. Where are away fans going to go? Like they've got to go somewhere. They don't want them on the second tier. But has there been any talk around that? Because I've been saying for years that the disabled section should not be right in front of away fans.
Yeah, and I think that the United, the disabled supporters, MUWSC, as their acronym is, are quite active in terms of behaviour from opposition fans. I go back to a game against PSG a few years ago where they ripped all the seats out and were throwing them at the fans in front. And that was a warning sign. I think there was a game where there was netting put up in front of the away fans on a European away. I think that those conversations clearly, that's come back to the fore, certainly from the Arsenal game last week, with a child unfortunately being hit. Those conversations are being had again, but whether they've ever gone away, I think they just get heightened at certain times. And something needs to be done. Everybody is entitled to feel safe at a football ground, whether that's safe from physical abuse, whether that's from words, anything. We all are entitled to feel safe at a football ground. So yeah, it's something that the Disabled Supporters Association are quite active about, and certainly that would have started those conversations again in much the same way you saw the way some of the United fans were treated at Villarreal. That then starts conversations about police brutality. So if we're having those conversations, we've also got to look after our fans, whether they're in the disabled section or whether they're away in Villarreal.
I just want to bring in a few of these comments, and then we can touch on the fans forum that we spoke about. Was it yesterday or
yesterday.
The day before? Deb? Yeah, awesome. Okay, so Stuart's on about Maria Edwards and Carla Solskjaer. I'm always one of these people who hate rushing youth players into a senior team. I love watching them. I haven't watched them much this year, but a couple of years ago I was always at LSV watching the men's under 23s. Yeah. For me, I'd rather see them at the Championship club like Maria was last season, do really well, and then make a step up into the WSL on loan, and then come in, because I just think they're our fan base, not the ones in the stadium, because we love our own, but I can just see Twitter in meltdown if Carlos Solskjaer getting bullied off the ball right away. Give him time. There's no need to rush into it. I know we want to, but so that's where I kind of stand on that one. Entertainment for everyone is on about 4 spots for the Champions League. We've only just got 3, so at some point, yeah, absolutely. I think the league probably needs to grow. Deb, do you want to jump on that one first before we get to 4 spots? Would you like to see, maybe 12 teams go up to 16 or something like that before we get 4 spots?
Yeah, I think we need to expand the league itself, and then whether UEFA bring in a Europa League version for the women rather than extending Champions League. But I think the WSL needs to grow first. Yeah. And also top 4, we've got to get top 4 then. Yeah.
True, 100%. And yeah, Director of Football. We have touched on that at the start of the show, so rewind after this ends. And we also got a show on it on Saturday as well, going out. Deb, before we talk a little bit about the 2021 as a whole then for Man United women's team, do you just want to touch on yesterday's fans forum?
Yeah, so fans forum, for anybody that isn't aware, because I have to say, up until the last few years, I'd heard about fans forum. I didn't know what it is. Effectively, it's again a selection of the club hierarchy with representatives from certain areas, and every 2 years, places become available. People are on a 2-year stint. You can apply to be one of those representatives. They cover different areas. So there's people from overseas supporters groups, from domestic supporters groups, official members. We've got, who else? We've got season ticket holders. Somebody represents the disabled supporters. The women's team are represented there. And you can apply to be one of those reps, and you go to these meetings 4 times a year, and we get an update on where some things are up to. So certain elements of the club, certain elements of ticketing that might be apparent, certain elements of just the policing and the stadium. And then there's the Q&A. So that's where if you put your question to anybody, that's where it might get responded to. So yeah, yesterday was a strange one, because we don't normally have before a match day. So everybody was we don't have a match day, so everyone was clock watching a little bit. Some really useful information. Talked a little bit about the advisory board. Talks about the link, I guess, that will exist. The minutes to forum will come out. I think it's a week or 2 weeks. And all of the questions that were asked, there were some that were really specific to the women's game. There were others that were mentioned about what would this mean for the women's game. But yeah, if there's anything that anybody's got a question about, check the minutes out when they come out. Maybe actually, John, you could, on your Twitter account, you could just link to them when they come out, just so people can have a look at them. But like I say, if there is a question, you can go through the United link, send me a question that way, or you can just throw me a question regardless. And I can either get it to the club direct in a club meeting or take it to forum.
Awesome. Yeah. Entertainment for everyone. Off topic, is there a watch-along show for the WSL games in the future? I never want to do this, and I think there might be a few people that we speak to who would be happy to do this. I've never done this for a couple of reasons. One, I think we're so passionate when we watch games. It might be entertaining for you, but me personally, I wouldn't want to be a part of that. And also, we're actually at games. 9 times out of 10, we're not armchair supporters, so to speak. Or even though I do enjoy watching football on TV, regarding the women's team, we're actually at matches. Connor, Deb, Connor, you obviously a big fan of fan channels, and I do watch-alongs myself, if I'm honest. If I can't watch the game, I've got nothing against watch-alongs, but as for actually doing it myself, I'm not a big fan of that. But Connor, do you want to kind of give your side on that?
I'm not a fan of watch-alongs, so to speak. I think during COVID it was good because it gave people a way of engaging with the fans. Like on TV, you can hear the fans, and if you go to games, you're with your friends and the rest of the fan. I think so. During lockdown, I think it worked. I think now, like you said, most of us, well, all of us are at pretty much every single game. So especially on the women's side. So I try and get to the men's and the 23s as much as I can as well. So there wouldn't be the time, obviously, on top of that. So no, I'm not against them. If like I said, during lockdown, I think it was a big part of keeping fans kind of together. But yeah, particularly for the women's, it's a good chance actually, Deborah, for you to plug the bus as well, isn't it? Talking about the games.
if you do want to be part of an away day atmosphere, ta-da! We've managed to secure some support from the club financially, so we're able to offer the bus to Brighton on Sunday. Admittedly, it's a very early start, but the princely sum of £20, which I don't think you couldn't get very far on £20 on a coach journey these days. If anybody is interested in joining us for an away day, we will be leaving from the Old Trafford area at 6:00. There is a pickup in the Midlands. We'll also return you to the Midlands.
Don't need to.
Yeah. Okay, right. Well, now we know where John's priorities are. So yeah, if anybody's interested in joining us for an away day, like I say, it's the cheapest we've ever been able to offer. We want as many people on that coach as possible. We understand that COVID might mean that people are a little bit wary. There will be space on there. We will obviously be asking people to wear face masks as well. But please, if anybody's interested, get in touch with us, DM us, however you would normally get in touch with people socially, get in touch with us that way, and we can get you booked on the bus as soon as possible. And you can sort your match ticket out, so you can do a proper away day. We can cheer the girls on in Brighton. But just going back to watch-alongs, I'm much the same. If I'm there, I can't be thinking of. I struggle to think about anybody else. I'm sorry, I'm selfish in that way. But during last season, when we were out for the whole season, the supporters club offered a watch along for every single game. And I'm blowing our trumpet here because we are the only team supporters club that offered one for every game. Now, part of that is because every game was televised, but it's still, and I have to give credit to Mark for organising it, because he was the one. Hey, good evening, Sang. Mark was the one that. Yeah, absolutely. Shane, maybe another one. Definitely be great to have you join us for an away day. Don't deny that. Absolutely. Where was I? I've confused myself here. Watch-alongs. Yeah, the only one that did for every game, for every match, and I think at that time it was really useful. Thank you very much, Sam. It was very useful to have everybody connected, and it was just one of those where we needed to be together at that stage. But I think it also shows the passion we've got for the team. There were other clubs that might have offered one a month, or they might have done the big games. They might have done the games against, depending on who they are, Arsenal, Chelsea, City, United. We did every single game. And like I say, Mark was on there, on those emails, sending them out. Who's a part of this? Sending out the links. It's not something that we would have done had it not been for COVID, but it was a really useful lifeline, I think, for a lot of people to keep us connected, to keep us going during that season.
I wanted to spend the last 10-15 minutes just talking a little bit about 2021. Then let's just kind of summarise it up a little bit. But I want to come at it from a different kind of concept to most of our shows. I kind of want to hear Deborah's views as well as Connor's on how the club have reacted to certain situations, because this is our fourth season now, and I've seen a massive change in a number of ways. And if I'm honest, it's kind of in a negative way. This isn't to do with the club. This is to do with maybe results, the fan base. And obviously, as we knew it was going to happen, as we get bigger, more people get involved. This is what we want. More people go to stadiums, which is what we want. This is one of the reasons why we started up this channel. But obviously, you're going to get a difference of opinion. You're going to get like kind of internal debates going on, this, that, and the other. So all this kind of stuff's happening. I kind of just want to like summarize 2021 and what might have led to us being in this position. So at the turn of the year, we came into 2021 top of the league. We was flying, had a few injuries, a few things happened, and we ended up dropping out of the top three, which meant that we didn't make Europe. So fans were on a little bit of a downer. Casey Stoney, someone that we all loved, ended up leaving. At the time, we thought that maybe her expectations were higher than the club's maybe at that time. We saw a lot of negative press about facilities, things like that. It took us ages to get a replacement manager. And when we did, the fan base was divided on him based on being a success at Birmingham, but not so much of a success in the US. The players that we lost were very like household names. They were the players that we brought in. People was like thinking, taking a chance on some of these players, and we didn't get enough of them in maybe. And then the start of the season, fan base is kind of split. I think I'm in the minority. I'm looking at it and thinking, well, only 3 points off Champions League, top of the Continental Cup group is still in our hands, even though I think the games aren't the greatest to watch. I'm kind of more positive in the sense of thinking, it's the start of a new era and we're still there or thereabouts. I can see why supporting Man United in the fourth season is different to the first three. Deb, I'll bring you in first because you've been there from the start, and Connor's kind of missed all the fun in the first 3 seasons.
I was going to say, is it just me? I've only just connected to him and all of a sudden we keep losing.
Yeah, I just want to hear kind of like Deborah's kind of thoughts on it, because it is different supporting Man United women now to what it was last season and the season and before that and the season before that. Do you kind of agree with how I kind of said that, Deborah? Or are you looking at it like a bit of a different way, or what's your thoughts?
I think it's been a really challenging year. I think 2021 has just been really challenging for us as fans of the team. And I think that part of that, just checking this one, should be more global supporters groups involved. Absolutely. There should be more. A fan is a fan, whether you're around the corner or the other side of the world. But we're also very keen to say that we will speak for every fan. So, yeah, absolutely more supporters groups. But at this stage, jump in with us, and we're very pleased to say we've got a lot of members who aren't able to attend games, but we still like to represent them. So definitely still join in if you want to. I think the challenge has been partly the beginning of the season not being there. Let's not forget the beginning of this calendar year, we weren't physically at games, and we missed an entire season. So we lost that connection to the players, to the team, and actually I think we felt very disjointed as a fan base. I think it was understandable, and then form wasn't great, results weren't great, and we sort of trundled to the end of the season. And then obviously there was the blow with Casey. There was a lot of stories that came out. There's a lot of news, rumour, things that may have been said, other views on that, but ultimately we were rudderless for a while. There's nothing about the team. Yeah, absolutely. I don't think any of us can deny that. But that happens with growth. Unfortunately. And Twitter is its own sort of microcosm. And just because it's said on Twitter doesn't make it true. But you also see a lot of people sometimes say that they avoid Twitter because it can be toxic. And I know sometimes during the season I had to, during the year. I think that the appointment of Mark Skinner disappointed some people, let's be completely honest. People thought we were going to get a big name with success behind them. His success was minimal as people were observing it. But you know what? We're all happy to get behind him. We're all supporting him. I think the style of football's been difficult to watch in some ways. I think results, and certainly the way we've ended up with a couple of draws, certainly Everton and Spurs, really, really difficult to take. So I just think it's been challenging. That's kind of the word for me. Massively. It's been a challenging 2021. And in terms of where we are as a fan base, deep down, we all want the team to win. That's never in doubt. We don't want the team to draw, to lose. We want every game for them to win. Sometimes, though, the way people express it, that's where people differ. But yeah, I think it's been massively challenging, and yeah, let's hope 2022 is a lot more fun.
Connor, your thoughts on 2021?
Well, it's like I said, I've been following the women's team since the creation, but never really thought to go, purely because I didn't know anyone there. I was just like, well, I'm going on my own kind of thing. But it was only really this year I kind of really, especially around the time, obviously, when Casey left, and I remember all the video. Actually, one of the first video I watched about women's football was Nat and Deborah, funnily enough, on the women's channel, talking about Casey leaving. And I remember watching that, thinking, what is actually going on? Because at the time, I remember saying that was just at the time of the Super League, if I remember rightly. It was all kind of around the same time. So those few months for the club were very bad. So obviously this season I came into it, first game, went to Reading 2-0. I thought, this is all right, we're quite good. And then since then, obviously a couple of weeks later, we got smacked by Chelsea, sorry. And it's difficult, isn't it? It's like what I said earlier. I think because people see it as we're Man United, we need to be winning everything, when in reality, it's a difficult season. We lost a lot of players, particularly in forward line, over the summer, and didn't really replace them. It's a new manager with a completely different style. Fans are now back, so there's added pressure. So there's added pressure. Now I've lost. So there's added pressure. Whereas last season, obviously, as you said earlier, it was behind closed doors. So we know what that's kind of done to certain players. Playing behind closed doors actually suits some players. Yeah, don't mention that smacking 6-1 again. So yeah, where we are at the moment in terms of I don't quite know. I think there's certain. I have to be honest, there's certain portions of the fan base I don't think want the women's game to grow. I think they quite like it as it is. And part and parcel of it growing, like Deborah said earlier, is criticism and argument, like division, if that makes sense. Not division as such, but there's going to be debate because not everyone's going to think the same about whether players or manager or styles or whether we deserve to look, all these kinds of things, because you're going to get more eyes on it and more people watching. So maybe this season has felt maybe more argumentative, I guess is the word, purely because there's more people watching. BBC and Sky, there's more criticism now. There's more, analytics, and there's constantly analysing. There's replays shown. There's so many videos now on Twitter where there weren't really before. So I think now it's kind of there's more opinions, and opinions are going to clash. And I think as long as it's kept in a respectful way, and like everyone, me and you, John, say all the time, everyone watches football differently. We all see certain players have different qualities compared to others, and I think that's the thing. So at the moment, I think I'm with you, John. Maybe it is a little bit of a minority that I don't think it's been too bad yet. I do worry if we don't pick up some wins soon, it could get bad. These next 3 games are massive. But it's like I said earlier, we're not even halfway through the season yet. We've got to wait until next. Like I said on a show a few weeks ago, we went from 1st to 4th last season. What's not to say we can't go from, I don't know what we are now, 5th or 6th into the top 3? It can happen. So there's a lot of games to be played yet. So, and like I said earlier, it's a completely different style to last year. Completely different personality styles as well. Really, Casey was very stern-faced and wouldn't show too much emotion. Whereas you see Mark, he's a complete flip side of that. He's kind of a heart on his sleeve, so to speak. So. Yeah, I'm really enjoying being a part of it, but obviously some wins would help the excitement as well.
Yeah. Dave, just finish off with yourself. Like, where do you kind of see 2022 going with either transfers, league positions, all this kind of thing? What would you like to see happen?
I think Mark Skinner said, hasn't he, that over the next 2 transfer windows we'll see his squad transform. I can't remember the exact word, but change dramatically. And I think signings, providing they're the right ones, they get us all excited. And I think, thank you. I think that we want to see new players come in, but we also want to see some of the players that we've currently got given the opportunity. So in terms of what does 2022 hold, hopefully hopefully more cohesion on the pitch and off the pitch. I think sometimes we as a fan group reflect what we're seeing on the pitch. I certainly think that might be happening at the moment. Just a little, need signings in January. Yeah, and absolutely, maybe we need to see a bit more rotation. We need to get everybody fit. That's the other thing. Look, I think that I'm always going to be the positive one. I'm always going to think... I'm fortunate. I've seen enough times the men's team be 1-0 down, 2-0 down and come back and win in the last couple of minutes. So I have this in my head that that's what Manchester United do. Now, unfortunately, it's gone the other way for the women recently and we've conceded late. But to me, I will still think we've got a chance right up until the last minute, until we're mathematically out of something. So, we've got a massive game on Sunday. Massive game on Sunday. And I just hope the players turn up for it. Really hope they turn up for it. I just think it's going to be telling what kind of performance we put out there. But also, we just need to get players fit. We need to get players in. And nothing changes the fact that we keep supporting the team.
I think the one thing I just wanted to add on top of that, John, obviously in your question as to 2022, the one thing I will say, I do think there's going to be some sections of the fan base that are going to be upset with some players potentially leaving. I do think with Skinner coming in that certain players are maybe not in his plans because like Deborah just said, let's not forget this isn't really his team yet. Yeah. He's not really had any of his players come in, and because it's such a different style, I think some fans are going to be upset when we see certain names. I'm not naming people because I don't quite know who that is, but I do think we'll see some big names go next year just because they don't fit into what he wants. And I think that goes back to you've got to back the manager and the team and trust. I hate that phrase, but trust the process, so to speak. He's only 3 months in, 3-4 months in. You've got to give him at least 2 windows, provided we don't get relegated, which is highly unlikely. But, let's see where we are in a year's time once he's actually got players for his system, and let's go from there.
Yeah, 100%. We could talk for another hour about Skinner, but we'll save that for a separate show. Deborah, thank you very much for coming on. It's been a great chat. I'm sure loads of people in the comments and who've been watching has found it very insightful. Please just shout out the no problem. Please just shout out the Man United Women's Supporters Club socials again, please.
Yep. Via the website, MUWSC.co.uk, on Twitter, MUWSC, on Instagram, I should know this, but it's MU_WSC. But yeah, and I'm at Deborah Henry on Twitter. But yeah, just get in touch with us any which way you can if there's anything you want to share, or via the fans forum section on the website of United.
Awesome. Connor, do you want to shout out the main account? I know that we're streaming to the main account, but there might be some people on the women's account who doesn't know about the main account. Do you want to shout out that one as well?
Yeah, I guess if there's people watching on the main account, make sure you go and subscribe to the women's one as well. And I think I don't really have anything to shout out. I think the one thing I would just add, I hope this has given good insight for a start. I think it has, but also made people aware more of the women's team and make people want to go, because what I said earlier, I didn't go on purpose because I didn't know anyone, but that's kind of what happened this season. I didn't really know you. I met you once, John, before I started coming up. So I hope this helps other fans as well. We're all very approachable. Just come up to us, say that, message us on Twitter or something like that. Say you're coming to a game and, we'll meet you before the game and things like that. So I just hope it brings more people across because it's definitely worth it.
That's something, sorry, just to jump in very quickly, that's something we actually did discuss with the club, a way of getting people who might have felt a little bit uncomfortable. Let's get a buddy system going. So keep an eye on the socials. We're hopefully going to have that, because there's a logistic issue with tickets, but we're working on that. So, we're definitely, just to get as many people in as possible. But, just keep in touch with us.
Thank you very much. Plan for the rest of the week. So it's Thursday today, if I'm correct. Yeah, it all blends into one with where I work. So yeah, Thursday today, Friday tomorrow. Connor, you're hosting tomorrow, so aren't you? Friday Night Fans Forum. So that's on Friday night. Yes. Saturday, Matt's got a show out, and he'll be talking about the director of football and a bit of a preview. And then obviously match day on Sunday. So plenty of things to get our teeth into over the next 2 or 3 days. Thank you to everybody in the comments, and we shall see you again very soon. Thank you, guys.